this is our collage. The first collage represents a female, and then the second one represents a male. And then we have the group members who will come and present about define gender according to sociologists, and then discuss about gender according to conflict theory and functionalist theory. And then the other group members will discuss critique based on conflict theory and sociologists. Let me allow the group members to come and represent the following.
Go.
In terms of gender is largely determined by cultural and social expectations. However, cultural and social expectations are dependent on which social group an individual belongs to. Gender is socially learned expectations and behaviors associated with members of each sex. According to sociologists, gender can refer to social and cultural differences based on their biological sex. These influences personal identities. Sociologists also define gender as physical characteristics and emotional traits, whereby gender is attached to being either feminine or masculine. Males are considered to be the dominant group, whilst females are considered to be the subordinate group, because this is what society deems appropriate behavior. According to sociologists, men are the dominant group because they possess traits like assertiveness, physical characteristics, they're not emotionally weak, aggressiveness, strong, whereby women are the subordinate group because they are feminine, sensitive, and emotionally weak.
What is gender? Gender is more of a person's perceived social location within culturally established designations between masculine and feminine behaviors, whereas gender is basically the attempt to categorize someone in terms of masculine and feminine. Okay, so basically gender is psychological, social, and cultural differences between males and females, which are viewed as masculinity and femininity, and it's not directly about the biological sex of the male and the female. When sociologists examine gender, it views men as the dominant group and women as a subordinate group. Sociologists therefore believe that there is not and never has to be a society in which women don't have an inferior status to that of men. Gender is a social classification based on one's identity, presentation of self, behavior, and interaction with others. Sociologists use gender has a learned behavior and a culturally produced identity, and as such it is a social category. This distinction, however, emphasizes that behavior associated with gender is culturally learned. So therefore, sociologists argue that gender is, however, more of a social performance rather than a biological factor.
According to sociologists, a role is expected behavior associated with status. Roles are performed according to social norms, shared rules that guide people's behavior in specific situations. Social norms determine the privileges and responsibilities and status possessed. Social norms determine the privileges and responsibilities a status possesses. Males and males, mothers and fathers, and daughters and sons are all statuses with different normative requirements attached to them. The status of a mother for expected roles involving love, nurturing, self-sacrifice, homemaker, and availability. The status of a father calls for expected roles of breadwinner, disciplinarian, home technology expert, and the ultimate decision maker of a home. Socialist feminism is also referred to as Marxist feminism. Generally adopts the Marx-Engels model that links the inferior position of women to class-based and its alignment with patriarchal family in capitalist society. Feminism argues that sexism and capitalism are mutually supportive. The unpaid labor of a woman in the home and their paid labor in a reserve labor force simultaneously serve at patriarchy capitalism. Many socialist feminists, both men and women, also believe that the economic dependence go hand in hand. Fearful of the loss of economic security, a husband's power over a wife is absolute.
Functionalism, also known as structural functionalism, is a macro-sociological perspective that is based on the premise that society is made up of interdependent parts, each of which contributes to the functioning of the whole society. Functionalists seek to identify the basic elements as part of society and determine their functions. Functionalists ask how any given element of social structure contributes to the overall social stability, balance, and equilibrium. Social control and stability are enhanced when people share beliefs and values in common. Functionalists emphasize that value consensus is a major ingredient in virtually all their interpretations related to social change. Values surrounding gender roles, marriage, and family are central to the functionalist perspective regarding social equilibrium. With reference to the functionalist theory on gender, it can be stated that the functionalist views men and women as inherently different, leading them to taking on differing roles in the family and in society. An example can be seen in society even today. Women are presumed to be more nurturing and caring, and therefore take on roles such as teaching, cooking, cleaning, nursing. Conversely, men are said to be more stronger and therefore take on roles such as the breadwinner and the worker. Furthermore, the functionalist makes relevance to two different societies: the pre-industrial or traditional society and the contemporary or modern society. Functionalists suggest that in pre-industrial societies, social equilibrium was maintained by assigning different tasks to men and women. Given the hunter and gathering years, in most pre-industrial societies, role specialization according to gender was considered a functional necessity. In their assigned hunting roles, men were frequently away from home for long periods of time and centered their lives around the responsibility of bringing food home to the family. It was functional for women, more limited by pregnancy, childbirth, and nursing, to be assigned to domestic roles. Children were needed to help with agricultural and domestic activities, girls with continuity activities, and when boys reached a certain age, they were allowed to hunt with older males. Once established, the functionalist division of labor was reproduced in societies throughout the globe. Women may have been farmers and gatherers in their own right, but they were dependent on men for food and protection. Women's dependence on men in turn provided a pattern in which male activities and roles came to be more valued than female activities and roles.
As mentioned before, structural functionalists suggest that gender roles arise from the need to establish division of labor that will help maintain the smooth running of the family along with contribute to the stability of society. According to Parsons and Bales, in a contemporary society, disruption is minimized and harmony is maximized. Families benefit when spouses assume complementary, specialized, non-overlapping roles. In this view, girls and boys are taught different approaches to life. Boys are taught instrumentally, that is, to be goal-orientated, to focus on tasks, and to be concerned for the relationship of the family to outside societal structures. When the husband or father takes the instrumental role, he is expected to maintain the physical integrity of the family by providing food and shelter and linking the family to the world outside them. Girls, on the other hand, are taught to be expressive, that is, to express their emotions and to look for and react to emotions of others. When the wife or mother takes the expressive role, she is expected to cement relationships and provide emotional support and nurturing activities that ensure the household runs smoothly. If too much deviation from these roles occur, or when there is too much overlap, the family system is propelled into a state of imbalance that can threaten the survival of the family unit. In many ways, the functionalist perspective of gender equality is a product of its time, describing the realities of gender roles and inequalities of the 1950s, but not explaining them. However, the functionalist perspective is less useful for describing the realities of gender in the post-industrial age. in which many women work outside the home. Men can stay at home with the children and everyone helps with the housework. As shown in this picture, both the man and woman are taking part in the household duties. More research is needed in order to gain a better understanding of the role of gender in the 21st century society and how the changing requirements of the post-industrial age affect these roles and stability that enforce our society.
Conflict. Conflict theory, also referred to as social conflict theory, is in many ways a mirror image of functionalism. Unlike functionalists, who believe that social order is maintained through value consensus, conflict theorists assert that it is preserved involuntarily through the exercise of power that one social class holds over another. Originating from the writings of Karl Marx, conflict theory is based on the assumption that society is a stage on which struggles for power and dominance are acted out. The struggles are largely between social classes competing for scarce resources, such as control over the means of production, which is land, factories, and natural resources, and for a better distribution of all resources, which are money, food, and material goods. Capitalism thrives on a class-based system that consolidates power in the hands of a few men of the ruling class, often referred to as the bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie own the farms and factories that workers depend on for their survival. The interest of the dominant class is to maintain its position of power over the subordinate class by extracting as much profit as possible from their work. Only when the workers recognize their common oppression and form a class consciousness can they unite and amass the resources necessary to seriously challenge the inequitable system in which they find themselves.
The conflict theory asserts that social problems occur when dominant groups mistreat the subordinate ones, and thus it advocates for the balance between the both genders. In this case, we have male and female. The males are the dominant groups, as you can see, and the females are the subordinate groups. And here we see that men mistreat women and take advantage of them. Friedrich Engels compared the family structure to the relationship between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, suggesting that women had less power than men in the household because they were dependent on them for wages, as you can see here. Men, like any other group with power and wealth, took advantage of this and they fought to maintain control over resources, political and financial resources in this case. This conflict is what brought about things like the women's suffrage movement, and it was responsible for social change. So the conflict theory advocates for the equality between men and women. As you can see here, there are men and there are women, and they are fighting in a tug of war. This shows equality between men and women, compared to the inequalities that the functionalist theory advocates for. In the context of gender, the conflict theory argues that gender is best understood as men attempting to maintain power over women. Therefore, men can be seen as the dominant group and women are the subordinate group. In the past, during the time of the hunter and gatherers, the men were seen to go out and hunt, and hence they were treated as the dominant group, and the women were told to stay at home and to look after children, and they were treated as the subordinate group. So, according to the conflict theory, social problems are created when the dominant groups exploit and oppress the subordinate groups. For example, here we see that the man is at home with his children, but he still makes his wife do all the chores and look after the children even though he is there. So he is taking advantage of her being there. Therefore, the conflict theory approach is normative in that it prescribes changes to the power structure, advocating for a balance between the powers. This means that if men go to work, women also need to go to work. As you can see, if men are cooking, women also need to be cooking. As you can see here, if men are cleaning, women also need to be cleaning. Everything needs to be equal in the conflict theory.
Good day, everyone. I'm Anda Kumalo. I'm from group called Power. I'm here to talk about the critics of conflict theory. The conflict theorists, they view gender differences as promoting inequality amongst men and women. This highlights that gender differences are promoting a patriarchy. To make a reference, as we see here to the collage, at this point, we have two genders. This one represents a man, this one represents a woman. At this point, a man is given a power or a symbol of being dominant, whereas a woman here, this picture shows that a woman is given an inferior, a symbol of power. Even at this point here, a man is given a symbol of being dominant. That shows exploitation of women in terms of gender context. Thanks a lot for your time.
Good day, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Unen. I'm here to speak about the critiques of the functionalism, basically on gender. Firstly, functionalism look gender as something that is natural or as something that is normal. I want to make a reference on this collage. As you see here, according to functionalism, it is not good for a man to be in the kitchen with a woman. A man is expected to be at work so that he can be able to take care or to take care of all maintenance of his family, while a woman is supposed to be in the house to take care of kids and to cook and also to clean the house. I want to make another example for indigenous people, basically the Zulu people. According to them, there is a division of labor. How a man is supposed to go out and take care of the livestock and also hunt or to get food for the family, while a woman is supposed to be at home looking or taking care of children. So, ladies and gentlemen, according to functionalists or according to functionalism, it is not good for a woman to be at work. If a woman goes to work, that will create a dysfunctional in the society or in the family. I thank you.
I'm here to conclude what my colleagues have been said. Conflict theorists, they view gender differences as something that is not normal, because they argue that gender differences are promoting inequality amongst men and women, whereas the functionalist theorists, they view gender as something normal or natural. Thanks for your time. Thanks a lot.